Hello, Facebook friends. This is Sandra Lee with miracleinspirations.com and the Breathe Life's Inspirations blog. Today I am continuing the Ask Me Anything About Food and Eating discussion, and I want to talk about um, eating packaged foods versus cooking foods. Hi, Catlin. And if you have any questions about that or about other things relating to food, then let me know. So for years, I have been mostly eating whole foods that I buy as basic ingredients and make them myself. But I still eat some packaged foods. I mean, that's just life in the modern world. Um, and I grew up, my dad, his family had a grocery store, like the first grocery store in California that had all the food items instead of, having to go to the baker and the butcher and all that stuff to be able to get individual types of food items. My family's business was the first grocery store that had everything. So I had all of the packaged foods, all the convenience foods available to me. And I remember that my favorite food used to be Campbell's soup, mushroom soup. So I definitely used to eat a lot of packaged foods. We ate TV dinners and, canned foods, frozen food, all those things. Now, the amount of packaged foods that we ate, Highlander, was definitely less than what people are eating now, and the options we had were less than what there is now. And I'm going to say it probably wasn't as, full of chemicals and stuff like that as it is now. But I definitely grew up eating packaged foods, and it was a really big deal when I switched to primarily making my own food. And as we were growing up, we definitely, bought vegetables and bought meat and, bought basic food and cooked that. But we certainly supplemented with our share of, the standard American diet, the standard American fare that people all over the place eat now. And now that I have been primarily making my own food for many years, I don't really even consider going back to eating the standard American, standard North American way of eating. And there are several places where I get my food. In the summertime, like now, finally, a lot of my vegetables comes from the farmer's market. And that's wonderful. I love supporting farmers and getting super fresh food. But I go to what I call a health food store. And then I also go to a regular grocery store. And when I go to the regular grocery store, what is on my, the conveyor belt at the store is almost 100% vegetables. 100% vegetables. Because that's what I buy at that store. And it always is like stunning to me when I'm at the store and the people behind me, it's almost 100% packages. Stuff that I would never buy, I would never consume, is what most of the people out there are buying and eating. So I imagine that my audience are probably mostly people who eat similarly to the way I do, eating primarily whole foods that you cook yourself with maybe supplementing some packaged foods. But in case there is anybody in my audience who is in the eating packaged foods mostly department, I'm going to share about this. So it's like one of my friends was really needing to make an improvement in his diet. And he was eating primarily packaged foods. And I did some basic education for him. And I took him to the grocery store and I showed him how to read labels because he didn't know. Nobody had ever shown him how to do that. Like, to me, that's a skill that kids should be taught when they're in school, but they're not. So most average people out there, not saying that my friend's average, by the way, but most people out there are eating packaged foods and don't know how to read labels and buy real food. And so I educated this friend of mine, and he has totally transformed his diet. Now I could say that maybe he even eats better than I do. He has become a gourmet cook, and it's been amazing, right? So, knowing that there might be members of my audience who are not as informed as I am, I thought I'd just talk about this. So, what are the reasons why someone might want to switch from eating primarily packaged to primarily whole foods? The biggest reason, I think, is chemicals, right? So, the average packaged food out there is full of ingredients on the label that I can't read. I don't know what they are. And there are people who say, it's like when you read a label, if it's got an ingredient in it that you don't understand what it is, then put it back. I'm not quite that strict about it, right? So I look at the number of ingredients that I don't know, and I've been doing this long enough and educating myself about this long enough that I know what a lot of those chemical ingredients are, and I know which ones, for me, I want to really avoid. Now, if the ingredients list on something is really long, then I'm probably going to not even pick it up in the first place because I know, right? But there are a lot of packaged foods that I rely on as staples, right? Ingredients that have basic food, single ingredient food, still in a package, olive oil in a package. If you eat tomatoes, tomato products, those are like single ingredients or 2 ingredients, maybe 3 ingredients, all of which you know what they are. So those are pretty much safe. But the foods that have long lists of ingredients, I mostly don't consume. Now, the reality is, I still shop at Costco. I still shop at a regular grocery store, but what I buy in those places is a very small percentage of what they have available. And even if I am choosing to buy something that has a relatively long list of ingredients, I kind of look at them carefully and decide, do I actually want to eat this or not? And if I am eating something that has ingredients that I think of as being kind of objectionable, I know that that also is a very small portion of what I'm taking in. So it's like looking at quantity. Quantity and quality is what matters. Most of it I filter by quality, and when I'm eating something, I'm choosing to eat something that I think is probably not perfect quality, but I choose to eat it anyway, I also know that the quantity is limited. So that overall, I'm just not getting all those chemicals, right? So it's like if there is things on there that I cannot pronounce, I have no idea what it is, or if I do know what it is and I know I don't want it, right? Then those are things that I'm going to choose to just not eat. So it's like one food that I used to eat a reasonable amount of because it's tasty. I used to eat Doritos. Doritos have all kinds of nasty chemicals in them, right? And those chemicals are in there to make it so delicious that you can't eat just one, but you want to eat more. So it's like anything that is formulated in that way, I am going to avoid if at all possible, because I know it's just going to be bad for me. And I know that if I eat any of those kinds of foods, that I have a body reaction to it after. So it's like I can tell that my body is more inflamed, right? So it's like I get swelling in my feet, a little bit of swelling in my hands. And so it's like, oh, that food that I ate has those ingredients that I know are in there. Fortunately, I've kept it to a small percentage of my food. Now, for people who eat the standard American diet, I think they might not be conscious of their body's response to it because the overall quantity, mass, large percentage of what they eat is coming from packages. And so the amount of chemicals in their systems from those foods is just continually full of toxins. And so they aren't aware that their body is having a negative response to it because it's just so much a normal part of their experience. I talk about this frequently with my clients and with people in general, that this is like when I clean up my diet, unfortunately, it makes me much more sensitive to the quality and the cleanliness of my food. So it's like it's kind of unfair, right? So people who eat junk food and who have really terrible diet, their system is so polluted that they don't notice a difference. And I just used this description with somebody the other day. So it's like, imagine I have a glass, and in this glass I have mud and rocks, right? And if I take a drop of food coloring and I put it in that glass of muddy rocks, I can't even see the food coloring. It doesn't make any difference at all. Okay? If I have next to it, if I have a glass of clear, just plain water, so it's just clear, right? And I put one drop of food coloring in that glass of water, right? The whole glass of water gets colored by that one drop of food coloring, because that glass of water is much cleaner than the glass of mud, right? So it's like in a person who's eating packaged foods all day, every day, right? Their system is full of toxins, full of pollutants. It's all dirty. So if you put something in there that's icky, right, they're not going to notice, because their system is already so dirty and so messed up that they can't tell the difference, right? If you take me with my relatively clean diet, right, I'm a lot more like that glass of water, right? So if I put a pollutant in there, like if for some reason I were to eat Doritos again, which I don't, but I mean, if I did, right, I would have symptoms. My feet would swell up, right? This also happens sometimes when I go to a restaurant, and I do. Just like life, I go to restaurants, and I know that sometimes there are going to be ingredients in those foods that are not things that I would choose to buy. But I'm okay with it once in a while, but I still get the swelling in my feet from it. It's like, oh yeah, that was in the food, right? Knowing that my body is able to clean that stuff out, because I mostly have a clear glass of water type of cleanliness in my body, right? So my body can handle a little bit of pollutants once in a while. So that's what I have to say about packaged foods versus whole foods when it comes to chemicals. But there's another reason to have fresh food that you make yourself. In addition to the chemicals that get added, you have what happens to the food when it's in the package. So why do I eat food? I eat food because of the nutrients that are in the food that my body needs to be able to function and be healthy. So the longer a food ingredient is off the plant it was picked from, or is the animal that produced that food, it's removed from the animal, whether the animal is killed or like an egg or whatever, the longer that food is away from being 100% alive and growing, that food starts dying. The nutrients and the nutritional qualities and the aliveness of the food goes from the time of harvest, and it starts decreasing every minute after that. So whenever I get a food that is in a package, it's been dead for a really long time. And so the amount of nutritional value that I'm going to get from that food is possibly close to zero, just being realistic, right? So it's like I have some tomatoes that I canned myself, right? So it's like it got picked from the plant and then it got heated, and the process of heating food causes a lot of damage to the nutrients, right? Then I put it in a jar, and it's been in the jar for years now because I haven't canned tomatoes in a really long time. So the amount of nutritional value that I'm going to get even from my own home canned tomatoes is going to be dramatically less than any fresh tomato, right? So it's like looking at packaged foods, how long has that food been in that package? Even if I'm going to the health food store and I'm buying what I consider to be the healthiest, most nutritious food in a package from the health food store, that's been in that package possibly for a very long time, unless I'm getting a fresh food. So it's like if I'm buying like raw cheese, for example, that's in a package technically, right? So it's more fresh and therefore there's going to be more nutritional value. But if I'm getting anything that is not refrigerated, off the shelf in a grocery store, realistically, it's been in that package for a long time. And the amount of nutritional value I can count on getting from that food is going to be low. Just reality in the world. So looking at what most people eat, if all they're eating is packaged foods, how much real nutrition are they getting from that food? Just to be realistic, not much. Okay, so it's enough technically to keep them alive, but you can be technically alive and still be really, really unhealthy. So by cooking food yourself using basic ingredients, you're going to be getting fresher food, free of chemicals, that's going to support your body in being healthy and supporting your health. That's what I have to say about packaged foods versus cooking foods. For you guys who are here, you have any questions? Something you want me to say about packaged foods or otherwise? I'm going to talk a little bit about the experience of cooking food. I love cooking. I didn't used to, but I really enjoy making food and eating it. So it's like the process of cooking food, I am putting love and attention for myself, for the other people who are going to be eating it. But, I just love the process. And so the enjoyment of the process is contributing to the value, not just nutritionally, but also energetically of cooking. And, when I go to the farmer's market, that's something that I enjoy doing. And I know that the farmer also put love into growing and harvesting food, and that it is as fresh as possible when I go to the farmer's market to get it. And I think there's been at least one picture on my business Facebook page of one of my plates of food from the summertime when I go to the farmer's market and get food and make these amazing, amazing plates of food. They're beautiful, as well as being delicious and extraordinarily nutritious and valuable. So it's like I can feel the aliveness of the food when I eat it, and it's just a joy to consume. So, all right. I think that is it for today. If we don't have any questions, I am going to sign off in a minute here. Thank you for coming. And future. Tomorrow, I am going to talk about organic versus conventional. So when it matters to get food organic, because sometimes it matters and other times it doesn't matter so much. So I'm going to talk about that tomorrow. And then the 2 days after that, I'm going to talk about wheat and other grains. And I'm doing that for 2 times because there's a lot to cover there. So I'm going to talk more about grains in general on the 2nd, and then I'm going to get more into wheat on the 3rd. So I'm probably going to be talking about food and eating for at least another week, because to tell you the truth, I have a ton of information about it, and this is stuff that I think a lot of people would benefit from knowing and don't. So there are other topics that I may get to within the remaining about 2 weeks for Facebook Live, and then if there's enough interest in me continuing to do Facebook Live, I may do that. But I committed to 17 days, and we'll see where we go after that. But we're going to talk for at least another week, probably about food. Thanks for being here and enjoy. Breathe. Give me comments. Let me know what you think and let me know if you want particular topics covered. Thanks. Bye.